talk to you what I would consider a miracle substance. And you know very well that if there's a substance that's a scam or a fraud and they're saying that it's going to, decrease the risk of heart disease or cancer or increase weight loss or decrease hunger, you know I'm the first one on top of it to expose it. But this substance, this miracle substance, actually does all of those, and I'm going to explain to you in this video the mechanism of how this substance actually works. And this substance has been backed up for years and years and years of scientific research. Let me talk about this substance. First, the substance I'm going to refer to as Rebif. And Rebif, this substance Rebif, has been around for hundreds of millions of years. And actually, it's natural. It's 100% natural. It's found in plants. It's found deep within inside plant cell walls. And like I said, this substance really can decrease weight, decrease hunger, increase weight loss. It can protect your heart against heart disease. It can decrease your risk of colon cancer, among other things. So let's start with this substance. The substance itself really, like I said, is found in plant cell walls, and it really is odorless, it's tasteless, and it really counts as very little calories. So when you eat it, it's really very low in calories as well. It's almost 0 calories. There's a certain amount of calories, but very low in calories. Let's just say that to be safe. So I eat this substance, Rebif, and I put it in my mouth and I chew it up and I swallow it. And one of the first things it does is when it gets into my stomach, it has this tendency to absorb water, and it sort of swells within the stomach. Now, it's a safe swelling, and what it does is when it swells a little bit as it holds onto the water, is it causes the stomach to distend. And as the stomach distends, it makes you feel full. You see, one of the signals of satiety, which is feeling full, is when your stomach stretches. So you eat food, your stomach stretches, and that stretching goes up, signals the brain, okay, we've had enough to eat, stop eating. The great thing about this Rebif, like I said before, is that yes, it makes you feel full, it'll stop you from eating or overeating, which is great, and plus the caloric value of it is very, very low. So that's the first thing. It really can aid with weight loss. You would want to get a lot of this in pretty much every meal throughout the day to decrease overeating. Now, the next thing is that Rebif will then go from the stomach and be transported into the small intestine. Well, when it gets into the small intestine, what it does is it also binds cholesterol. So as it holds on to the cholesterol within the small intestine, it prevents that cholesterol from being absorbed through into the blood. So overall, it will lower blood cholesterol levels. Now, as you probably know, high blood cholesterol levels is associated with increased risk of heart disease. So by taking this substance, this miracle substance, Rebif, if you will, it'll help decrease cholesterol. Overall cholesterol levels will be lower, and therefore by lowering cholesterol, you're lowering your risk for heart disease. Another thing that this Rebif does is it also holds on to glucose. It'll hold sugars, and it'll actually not decrease glucose or sugar absorption into the blood, but it will help slow it and regulate it. So you get nice regulated glucose absorption from the small intestine into the blood. You're not going to get glucose sugar spikes in your blood, and therefore you're not going to get insulin spikes in your blood because of that. Now, that's healthy for all of us not to have insulin spikes and glucose spikes like that, but especially for someone with diabetes. That's extremely important. Someone with diabetes should get lots of Rebif in their diet every single day. So now we have the Rebif. So far it's made us feel full. It hasn't counted for very many calories, which is obviously significant for weight loss. It decreases cholesterol blood levels, and it helps regulate blood glucose and insulin levels. But that's not all. The next thing is it moves from the small intestines because it itself doesn't get broken down. So it doesn't get broken down in the stomach, it doesn't get broken down in the small intestine, and therefore it moves into the large intestine. Now, when it gets moved into the large intestine, because it hasn't broken down yet, it'll add bulk, mass to the feces. That is what moves into the large intestine. And it'll cause the large intestine to stretch like that. And the stretching of the large intestine actually causes increased movement within the large intestine, known as peristalsis. And this peristalsis, this muscular movement of the large intestine, will take the feces and move it through at a very regular pace. So it keeps you regular as well. Now, the significance of that is when you look at increasing risk of colon cancer. So, colon cancer. So here's your colon wall, and let's say here's the feces moving through. If you have carcinogens in the feces, now a carcinogen is something that can cause cancer. So if you have carcinogens in the feces, the longer the carcinogen sits up against the wall of those cells that line the large intestine, the better chance something bad can happen. So by having increased or a regular rate of movement through the large intestine of the feces to help that move through, you're decreasing the time that the potential carcinogen, cancer-causing substance, is sitting up against the intestine wall like that, and it's moving through and moving out. So being regular, if you will, is actually a big benefit in preventing or decreasing the risk of colon cancer. Now, another direct benefit is this Rebif, although we haven't broken it down in the stomach and the small intestine with our enzymes, and therefore we haven't gained energy from it. As it moves into the large intestine, all of the bacteria, and we have 400 or 500 different species of bacteria in our large intestine, they're all providing a very important function in there. And this Rebif is actually something that they thrive on. It's food for them. And so as we pass it into the large intestine, it causes them to flourish. They proliferate. And as they proliferate, what they do is they actually also themselves, the bacteria is thought to help maybe get rid of carcinogens and also produce maybe other substances by breaking down the Rebif into triglycerides, for example. These triglycerides then are absorbed into the wall, the lining of the large intestine, and that's thought to actually increase the health of the intestinal wall. Again, increasing the health of those intestinal walls, again, decreases your risk of colon cancer. So far, if you look at this Rebif, it is a miracle, really a miracle substance. And one of the other things that occurs in the large intestine, if you've ever heard of diverticulosis. So diverticulosis is a condition where the pocketing in the large intestine becomes weak, and it forms these pockets, these pouches, which is called diverticula. And these pouches, this weakening, can cause problems, and it can become inflamed, which is diverticulitis, and it can cause a lot of problems. Well, this Rebif not only prevents diverticulosis, but it's also good for treatment for individuals who already have diverticulosis. And matter of fact, more than half the people over the age of 50 have diverticulosis, and that number may even be much higher. So overall, if you look at Rebif, we're talking about making you feel full so you don't overeat. It counts as very little calories in your diet. It helps regulate glucose levels, insulin levels in your blood. It decreases plasma cholesterol levels, which will decrease your risk of heart disease. It moves into the colon. It keeps you regular. It keeps your colon cells very healthy. This Rebif is something that we should all get into in our diets. Now the question is, well, how do I incorporate this into my diet? Well, the great thing is that Rebif you can get by eating fruits, very high in Rebif, vegetables, very high, whole grains, very high. So whole grains, you want to get anything that's plant, nuts also. So anything that's plant-based, remember I said it's in the cell walls of plants, you're going to find this Rebif. Now, there is a side effect. The one side effect of Rebif is as it moves into the large intestine, as our bacteria in the large intestine feed on it, right, to produce actually good substances, one of the byproducts is it does produce gases. It produces methane gas, and it produces hydrogen and carbon dioxide gas as well. And so it does lead to intestinal gas, or flatus, if you will. So you might get a little gassy from it. But that's the worst side effect of this Rebif. And one last thing I want to tell you about is I got the word just a little confused from the very beginning. It's not Rebif. If you take the word Rebif and you turn it around and read it backwards, the word is actually fiber. And yes, it's fiber. The miracle substance is fiber. And it's very important for all those reasons that we all get lots of fiber in our diet. This is Professor J saying keep smiling all day long as much as you can and get fiber in your diet.